The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and every one that does, he prunes so that it bears more fruit. You are already pruned because of the word that I spoke to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, because without me you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me will be thrown out like a branch and wither. People will gather them and throw them into a fire, and they will be burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask for whatever you want, and it will be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I am the vine, you are the branches. That's the line from this gospel that gets a lot of airplay and has a lot of time in our head, and we hear that and it brings us back. It's not a new saying for most of us. Without me, you can do nothing. That one's in there too, but it doesn't get as much airplay. It's pretty important though. I am the vine, you are the branches. Good visual imagery, something folks can relate to. Without me, you can do nothing. It's pretty blunt, it's pretty stark, but it's also true. In the first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, St. Paul is at the beginning of his conversion. Much to the disbelief of so many Christians, Paul, the former Saul, is running around town preaching the risen Christ. The early Christians are stunned. They can't quite believe it. There's a lot of skepticism when they hear the rumor that Paul is a Christian. Folks are a little tentative. But this gentleman in the first reading named Barnabas, his name means son of encouragement, he accompanies the newly converted Paul. And perhaps even more importantly, he vouches for Paul in the early Christian community, assuring the disbelieving believers that Paul is in fact one of them now, and he's preaching the risen Christ. And that first reading that we heard, it concludes on a very positive note. Here it is, Paul preaching to the Hellenists. He's preaching the risen Christ. And the Hellenists, the Greeks, they want to kill Paul. Isn't it ironic? Saul, the one who once rounded up Christians himself, is now Paul being protected and being saved by his now fellow Christians. Talk about I am the vine and you are the branches. Saul was pruned into Paul, and the vine nourished and fed Paul with Barnabas, the son of encouragement, as an instrument. Hopefully this episode with St. Paul reminds us of conversion that can happen in our own lives. We're branches. We're waiting to be trimmed and pruned. The vine, the lifeblood of the vine, nourishes us. And hopefully, along the way in our faith journey is our own personal Barnabas, a son or daughter of encouragement who can encourage and vouch and journey with us in our own conversion journey. Praise God, we have had a successful academic year. The friars can lip sync when I say the following things. We were on campus, in person, face to face, the whole semester. And hopefully I never have to use those expressions or state the obvious ever again, beginning in the fall semester. I also got a little mockery too, and this one was my fault when the theme of the spring semester was let's do it again. Other institutions were stepping out in faith, asking God to bless us. No, I said let's do it again. But I was very cognizant of the fact that without God, we could do nothing. All right, so tonight, we lift up our hearts in praise and thanks that God has brought us to this point where we can conclude the academic year together as a community. The pandemic, though, and hopefully it truly is coming to an end, life is certainly better now than it was a year ago, have always encouraged us to look at the pandemic through spiritual eyes. Take those opportunities to be magnanimous, to give others the benefit of the doubt, and to be patient. The first letter of St. John sums it up even better. Love one another in deed and truth. We've had lots of opportunities to do that this year, and let's continue to do that. Love one another in deed and in truth. Whether we wanted them to or not, our priorities changed throughout the course of this last 14, 15 months. It certainly was a radical pruning of the branches of our lives. But all the while, we were nourished by the lifeblood of the vine. And so, as many of us here go into a summer break, we're going to anticipate and pray for a normal fall semester when you come back. And P.S., the chapel is going to look even better than it does now. As you can see, there's some work going on here. But let's keep in mind, I am the vine, you are the branches. That is actually Jesus wanting to live in each one of us. When we receive his body in the Eucharist, we are the branches, and he is the vine. So tonight, in the beauty of our chapel, at the conclusion of this academic year, let's echo the words of the prophet Isaiah. And let's echo his words with hearts that are uplifted in praise and thanks. And let's make this our own prayer of thanksgiving. You mete out peace to us, O Lord, for it is you who have accomplished all we have done.